I'm Mitch Gallagher. Welcome to the Sweetwater Minute. Our special guest today, Gannon Kashawa from Universal Audio, Senior Product Manager.
Yes, sir.
What does that mean, Senior Product Manager?
It just means I'm old. Has nothing to do with my level in the company. It's
Right. No, I don't think that's true.
No. Senior just means that I have control over some of the products that we make, and I manage the product as opposed to just designing it. So we take it from its whole life cycle, beginning of life to the end of life transition plans.
Right.
Yeah.
And speaking of, the latest products are right here in this rack. This is really exciting. These are the 3rd generation Apollos.
That's right. Yeah.
And some big news here.
Big news, yeah, and this is a very interesting and challenging product because it is the 3rd generation. So how does a company iterate and not just make it like a cyclical, oh, it's going to be a little bit better in this way and a little bit better in this way? And what we really were after here was to go back to the drawing board and significantly improve on all the areas. So we really went to town on the conversion and the clocking, and each one of these now has 6 DSPs. So that's a huge milestone for us. We've been kind of capped at 4 in the past, and now we're able to expand past that. And so, and what it does for the customer is you're no longer making a decision on how much DSP horsepower you need plus the analog I/O and how it's gear changing things. You already have 6 DSPs in all of these devices, and so now it just becomes how much I/O do you need?
Right.
So it helps customers make a decision that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So give us a quick tour just of the I/O and the capabilities of each of these 4 separate boxes here.
Okay, well, we'll start at the top. This is the X6. So this is the, it has 2 Unison mic preamps. It has 6 line inputs and 6 line outputs. Well, it's the lowest cost X series that we have. So for under $2,000, this guy comes right in. And so this is designed more for, someone who needs mixing horsepower. Maybe it's in a surround pre-production suite where there's not a lot of mic input needs, but you still need HEXA DSP and you want all the UAD2 goodness that this provides.
Right.
The X8 is similar to the Apollo 8 that we have now. So it's 4 Unison mic preamps, still the 6 DSPs, 8 line inputs, 8 line outputs, the full complement of analog and digital. And then the X8P, P stands for pre's, so that's pretty much a direct replacement for the existing Apollo 8P. The 8 microphone preamps, the 6 DSPs, and it has 8 line outputs. And yeah, this guy is kind of designed more for someone who's going to be doing multi-track recording. A couple of these in a rack, and you've got a great live rack, and you can do 16 tracks or 24 tracks like that.
Right.
Then the Apollo X16 is kind of the flagship of this series, and that's really, it's designed to be integrated into console-based rooms or something with a tape transfers, that sort of thing, where you need a lot of analog I/O. And we've gone to the table on that guy and really done incredible analog specs for it. So our our D to A dynamic range is it's over 133 dB, 133.2 dB, which is
0.2.
Yeah, well, and maybe even 3. We just got some new numbers today, so it's gradually inching up. But I mean,
That is amazing.
Stellar specs, better than the part spec actually, and because we double up the converters on that, we're able to exceed the actual part spec. So we're really proud of the way these things have all come together and how they're going to attach themselves to different markets. So these are going to be meaningful to EDM musicians, rock players who are putting their band together, live recordists or studio. I mean, there's a bunch of different. They all overlap, of course, but there's different places where they'll find themselves, comfortably nested.
Right. You mentioned studio applications for this, and one of the big things for the pro-level studio guys is the level that the interface operates at. Tell us a little bit about how that's changed with these.
Right, so with the X series, we've introduced a switchable plus 24 dBu operation. So now we can interface at the right voltage acceptance for +4 studio devices, consoles, mic preamps, compressors, things like that. They want to see a voltage input of, plus 24 dBu. And that allows us to take in more level and then output more level. So on the output side, you can drive your compressor harder, get it into the sweet spot, drive it into the place where it's very comfortable. So people who are interfacing with consoles and want to just have a complete tape recorder replacement, the X16 will be a perfect complement for that.
Right,
Yeah.
right. The other nice feature, and it may not seem that big to some people, but in the studio it is a big deal, is you now have a talkback mic in this.
That's right, every single one.
Yeah, right.
So talkback, and you can't underestimate the importance of it. It is a small feature, but ours is routable, so it comes into the DAW. You have it in the I/O setup, and you can route it to your DAW. So if you want to record a scratch track, it's sitting right there. We've done a nice thing with compression and limiting on it so that it sounds nice and squishy, just like it should.
Right.
We've done another really cool thing too, so that if you add an Apollo Twin Mark II to an expanded unit here, you can bring the talkback and the remote control out to your desktop. So the talkback travels with that. Now you can put these guys in your machine room or in the rack and then have a desktop remote control with the Apollo Twin Mark II.
Right.
The talkback's great. You can slate your takes, record a scratch track, talk with your musicians. We're trying to get more of the control room features taken care of in one unit.
Right, right. I was going to ask about that because my home studio currently is an Apollo 8 with a Apollo Twin Mark II.
There you go.
And so the two of them work together, and it's such a beautiful synergy the way the two of them, I almost have like a monitor control system right there in front of me. So that does work with this as well. That all is still compatible. And
oh yeah, that's the cool thing about these. These are all Thunderbolt 3 connectivity, but they're backward compatible with the Thunderbolt 2 Apollo. The first generation and second generations were Thunderbolt 1 and Thunderbolt 2, and Apple makes this handy little converter that you can turn around so you can go from Thunderbolt 3 to Thunderbolt 2. So if you want to integrate these and add an Apollo X to an existing Apollo rig, it's as easy as adding a $39 adapter and off you go.
nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. So you mentioned several things there, and maybe we'll get a little bit tweaky here because I'm very curious myself.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you've improved the conversion, and you said you're using multiple chips to do that. Tell us a little bit more about what does that mean exactly?
Well, it just allows you to take, instead of using dedicating a chip to multi-channels and sort of taking advantage of the throughput, you can double them together and add, with each doubling you get another 3 dB of dynamic range and a reduction of THD plus noise. So it's a simple matter of allowing them to work in parallel and get more goodness out of it. We're using all ESS DACs on these, and they sound fantastic. We went, as I said, we went right down to the bottom and tried to not just get better specs, but the sound is wonderful. The sound quality is just rich and full and wide. A lot of it has to do with the clocking that we've done. We went down to the board again, and we added a secondary clock, a crystal clock to this. So both of the frequency domains that we have 44.1 and its multiples, 48K plus its multiples. Those are now sourced, the clock sources are from different crystals. So what that does is give you a really clean multiplication path from one frequency rate to another without having to multiply and divide and increase your jitter. So our jitter spec on these is incredibly low. And both the internal and when we're clocked externally, we're really proud of where those numbers have ended up.
Right, and in some cases, your external clocking is better than the internal clocking on
some, yeah, it's true.
Right.
And many interfaces use a single crystal, and they'll take, most of the time they favor 48K. So you'll see, oddly enough, 44.1 is the most common recording frequency, but their specs will be lower at 44.1 than 48 because they're using a 48K multiplication crystal and then dividing that back down to get to the 44.1. So along with that, you get some jitter and some a little bit of noise in that crystal.
Right, and so you've eliminated all of that.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable.
Right. So what does that really mean? I mean, we hear that term a lot, that jitter gets thrown out there, and we want the lowest jitter we possibly could have. Yeah. What does it mean to our ears in the end?
That's a tough one because really the audio effect of jitter, I think it's subjective, and I think that people hear different things. But when you think about what jitter is an irregularity in timing. So it's especially important on the A to D side. When you're actually imprinting the sound and converting it, if you don't have a perfectly stable clock, then it gets recorded at weird time intervals. And as it plays back at another time with a different clock, or even the same clock at a different time, those irregularities in the timing will shift. And there's a number of different artifacts that can happen. There's frequency related things, there's aliasing, Generally, we try to push the artifacts to the low side and shifted out of the audible band.
Right.
But still, there can be little spurs here and there, and you'll see these basically audio artifacts in your signal when you're recording with high jitter or playing back with high jitter.
Right.
So, as I've listened to it over the years, some clocks and some interfaces with really nice clocks sound buttery and just kind of natural, whereas others I've heard sound exciting and zippy, and generally that's what you're hearing is jitter up in the the audible band in the higher frequencies.
Right.
So it's a very I don't think anyone will ever be able to definitively answer that question, but I can tell you that there are audible differences, and the lower the better.
Right. Right. Yeah, well, what I like is that you guys have minimized any of those artifacts, taken them outside the range of hearing, and then with the improvements in the conversion as well, you've kind of provided the ultimate neutral. I mean, ultimate's a one of those words, right? But neutral platform.
Well, that's
right? Because then you have the Unison preamps and things that you can mix in there to color it as you like, which I think is a brilliant approach.
Well, that's the idea. We wanted to shoot not just for our price competitors who are in the same sort of price band as we are, but we wanted to shoot for the premium A to D converters, the ones that you pay 4 or 5 times as much for, but only do conversions. So we're really after the mastering folks and the people who want to have a perfectly clear picture of what they're recording and can appreciate and get in there and do something with that.
Right.
So yeah, that was a big part. And then on top of that, as you say, now you have Unison, you have real-time UAD processing on your input channels, and you have mixing, and you have processing that you can commit as you're recording or not if you choose not to. So the whole ecosystem is it's really turning out to be quite a powerful platform.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
And one of the platform is also going to evolve before the end of the year as well, because you'll be introducing surround monitoring capabilities with these.
That's right. Yeah. So Q4. We have surround monitoring, and it comes in a couple of different flavors. The X6 can go up to 5.1, and the rest of the family can go to 7.1. And we've done some really cool things. I think they're cool. But the way that you invoke a surround mode is there's a pull-down menu, and you select which mode you're in. So we take care of it's 5.1. Is it film? Is it SMPTE? Is it whatever channel output that the DAW is going to send to the interface? We take care of that in the I/O setup. So you pick 5.1 film, and there it is, left, center, right, surround, LFE. And so then your DAW spits out that same thing. It's completely aligned up with the channels. Everything falls under the main volume control. And then there's another tab that you can express, and that is your room calibration. So we give you the capability of using a pink noise signal source and then calibrating your speakers to a fixed dB SPL. So if you're doing surround work and you need to do film work and you need to work in a calibrated mode, we have that as well. That's a really great thing too, because we store it with the interface and we store it with the I/O setup. So when you recall that, you only have to do your calibration one time.
Right.
So that's cool.
Nice.
And then there's built-in fold-down, mono and stereo fold-down, and there's built-in solo and mute per channel. So pretty much all the things you need in a day-to-day production environment. So the idea is you don't need an interface and a monitor controller. We give it to you all in one.
Right.
Yep.
Nice. So you guys thought of everything.
Well,
again,
we tried.
What's left for Generation 4?
Good question. I'm thinking hard about that already.
Right, I bet you are.
Yeah.
I bet you are.
Yeah.
Well, these are so new. We literally just have these in the building. Haven't had a chance to. I haven't had a chance anyway to run a microphone through. But you were doing some listening tests earlier, and I know the results of some of the comparisons of things you were doing were really showing these to be stellar interfaces.
Yeah, that was really fun to do. We had. We had the morning meetings today. There was probably 400 people in that. And then we had about 50 people in 4 groups coming through and listening to the individual tests. So we did headphone tests, blind listening, and we had 4 interfaces of mixed types and manufacturers. And it was very evenly distributed, but biased toward the X16 and the X8.
Right.
So,
right.
That makes me feel good. If we're glaring, that might be bad.
Right.
Only if it's glaring on our side and good on our side.
Right, yeah. right. But always coming out on top. That's That's the point, right?
That's right.
The goal, anyway.
Exactly.
Gannon, I'm so excited about these. I'm going to sit down and put a video together for you guys where we're going to do some recording and check these out in more detail as we were able to get our hands on. But we appreciate you coming in and giving us a preview of what these are all about. It really is fun stuff.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having us. Couldn't be happier.
Oh, I know it's a long process to put those together, so congratulations on actually being here.
Yeah, all right. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Good to see you.
All right, thanks.
And thank you for joining me for the Sweetwater Minute. I'm Mitch Gallagher.